A win for Greg, but Britain's Davis Cup match with Israel is tied
It's a
at
great
1-1.
start for Great Britain.
And car boot couture, the celebrity cast-offs being sold for charity.
Sky News with Alan King and Anna Botting.
Hello, good evening. You're watching Sky News live at 5. Sinn Fein is a party in crisis this evening. An IRA robbery, a murder and the courage of 5 sisters have driven it to one of the lowest points in its 100-year history.
The party was supposed to be celebrating its centenary. Instead, it's facing ostracism from the political mainstream. Sky's Jonah Hull reports.
Under the weight of the latest scandal to break over Sinn Féin's centenary celebrations, Gerry Adams may finally have come face to face with his party's mortality. The real trouble began when the IRA was accused by its own supporters of murdering a member of their community. It was at this Belfast pub that 33-year-old father of 2, Robert McCartney, was battered and knifed to death in a drunken row in January. Convinced the gang who attacked him was made up of IRA loyalists, McCartney's family launched a persistent and damaging campaign, accusing the IRA of shielding suspects and of intimidating witnesses.
The repeated appeal for those to come forward and tell what they know has to date had little effect on the ground. Robert's life was taken from him as if it was of no value. It is only when those involved are convicted will the value of his life be restored.
The 100th year of the mighty Republican movement has brought disquiet to Belfast's working-class Catholic heartlands. The £26.5 million Northern Bank raid in December was blamed by police on the IRA. Accusations of international money laundering and illegal fundraising followed in February, as did claims that Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness held senior posts on the IRA's Army Council. The movement has denied all accusations against it until now. The pressure beginning to tell last week when the IRA announced it had expelled 3 of its members following an internal investigation. But the McCartneys demanded more, and faced with a community angered by an attack against one of its own, the IRA have suspended 7 more of its members. Still not enough, say the Northern Ireland police.
What we need is people to feel free, to feel comfortable, to provide evidence to the police service, so that we can bring those responsible for this brutal murder to justice, so that due process can take its course and that people can be brought before the courts.
For the first time humbled before its own community, and with Gerry Adams' own popularity diminished, Sinn Féin is trying to bring the IRA godfathers to book. The party, meanwhile, must ponder a future of accountability without unquestioned support. Jonah Hull, Sky News.
Well, let's take you live to the Sinn Féin conference in Dublin. Sky's Liam Cray is there for us. We're going to hear from Martin McGuinness shortly, Liam. Talk of a party in crisis. What is the mood there?
Well, the mood isn't good. Obviously, the party leaders have been rehearsing their speeches behind me in this building, and certainly a large part of their speech will deal with the Robert McCartney murder, the Northern Bank robbery, the money laundering, and all of that fallout over the past 3 months, which has had such a very bad effect on morale in this party. So although this is their annual gathering, as you said earlier, their 100th, their centenary, it is in a way an ordinary party conference, but the spectre of those 3 things is looming large over it. The murder of Mr. McCartney and what that has meant. Now, we were in Belfast today. We were in the Short Strand area where Mr. McCartney lived, and we spoke to a few people, one of whom told me that the community there is 100% behind the McCartney sisters, and that all the support that the local Sinn Féin people may have had in that area and may have looked as their own, that they could just turn on like a tap, that all that has gone away, and that they believe that the McCartneys should have justice, that people should be handed over to the police and should go through the court system, and that the McCartneys should find that the murderer of their brother should be brought to justice.
So the McCartney killing has been far more damaging, has it, than the accusations over that £26 million bank heist?
Well, the funny thing about that bank heist is it was £26.5 million, one of the biggest bank robberies in the world, and a lot of people would have looked at that as some kind of Robin Hood operation. This is a huge big bank, so no great loss there then. That's the way some people would look at it, and would probably even sneakingly say what a great job the IRA did. You know, who else could have done this other than a very well organised organisation like the IRA? And, you know, it has... well, very little of the money, I suppose, in terms of the £26.5 million has turned up yet. And people are still saying, well, it must have been the IRA. If it had been other people, that money would have been turning up left, right and centre. People would have been buying expensive luxuries. There would have been a lot of evidence of it. As it is, some of it turned up in a police country club, a small amount, and we don't know what was behind that, why that turned up there. And some of it turned up in County Cork in part of an investigation over money laundering. So there was a sort of, people sort of looked at the IRA and said, well, that was a good operation. But then when it came to the murder of Robert McCartney, now, Robert McCartney's sisters say they're happy that it was not the IRA as an organisation carried this out or sanctioned it. This was a row in a bar. It involved members of the IRA and members of Sinn Fein. Now, as you know, and as you reported, Gerry Adams has already suspended 7 members of Sinn Fein, and the IRA has expelled 3 members of that organisation. The sisters of Robert McCartney say that's not enough. People should come forward, and although Sinn Fein say that people shouldn't go to the police, they should go to the police ombudsman, they should go to a solicitor. These sisters and other members of the community are saying, go to the police, give the information, and bring these people to court.
Liam, we'll come back to you when we see Martin McGuinness. For the moment, thank you very much indeed. Liam Cray reporting there from Dublin.
Still to come here on Live at 5, the burglar who bagged a paycheck from the BBC. Were they right to pay for his story?
Cop rape case, the jury retires to consider its verdict. And
in the future, I know that if I do this in the touchline, I'm out. I'm out.
Why, Jose has learned his lesson about English football.
the sister of the boy at the centre of the Michael Jackson child abuse allegations is back in court again for a second day of questioning.
She's already told the court how she saw the superstar give alcohol to her young brother, a cancer survivor. She also said the family had been told not to talk about what went on at the ranch. Now, standing by for us outside the courthouse in Santa Maria is Sky's Jane Secker. Jane, firstly, what's the court basically been hearing today?
Well, there was a small delay to court this morning. It was due to start around half an hour ago, but it just started a few moments ago. What's happening now is Davlin Arviso has taken the stand again, and now the jurors are being shown the rebuttal video that Michael Jackson and his associates filmed after the Martin Bashir documentary aired in the US. And this was to put their side of the story. He felt he was very unfairly characterised in the Martin Bashir documentary. So that is now being shown to jurors. But we expect after that is finished that we will hear more from Davlin Arviso, who of course yesterday spoke at length about how she claims she saw her brother being given alcohol by Michael Jackson. Now, this is very serious because the 4 charges that he's facing of giving alcohol to a minor are federal charges, and if he's found guilty of them, he will go to prison. She said she saw him being given wine by Michael Jackson. She spoke about Michael Jackson's wine cellar hidden behind a jukebox in the games room, and she also spoke about how Gavin's behaviour changed after times that he spent alone with Michael in his room. So the prosecution clearly trying to build up a picture of Michael Jackson giving this child alcohol over a number of occasions.
And of course, Jane, this follows, doesn't it? The dramatic pictures the court has seen.
But this always promised to be an astonishing trial, but really what we saw yesterday in court did leave us breathless. We were shown the inner sanctum of Michael Jackson's bedroom, his private quarters. We saw dolls, mannequins of children all over the place. Now, we're fighting to try to get that footage released from the court, but there won't be a decision made on that for another week. But Sky News has obtained exclusive footage very similar to that shown to the jury. Sky's Belinda Russell will take us through that footage now.
This is Michael Jackson's private apartment at his Neverland Ranch, now the epicentre of claims he sexually abused a 13-year-old boy. It's a labyrinth of memorabilia, photographs, pictures of children and dolls. A pair of Muhammad Ali's gloves sit strangely next to a signed picture of child acting star Macaulay Culkin. The Santa Maria court won't allow the films shown to the jury to be released, but we've obtained our own version, filmed by a former Jackson employee. These are the same rooms shown in the court, although those were filmed by police. A Shirley Temple poster is placed next to pictures of unknown children, and a shelf beneath it is packed with children's dolls. A mannequin can be seen in the foreground of this room. In the court pictures there were even more, scattered throughout his living quarters. As the cameraman moves upstairs to the most private area of the house, the staircase is lined with porcelain dolls. A guest room is adorned with children's soft toys. Above the bed, a strange picture, similar perhaps to the Last Supper, with Michael Jackson enthroned at its centre. The home is a cluttered mess, a child's dream of toys and games, but it is of course the bedroom area of a man in his 40s. Belinda Russell, Sky News.
Jane Secker at the court for us. Jane, thanks very much indeed for that. And don't forget, we will of course be using actors to recreate the vital moments of the Michael Jackson trial. That's throughout our coverage here on Sky News. Tomorrow morning and every day next week from Tuesday, we will reconstruct the latest events, 9:30 here on Sky. And at 7 p.m. tomorrow, you can see highlights of the entire week's evidence.
Now, if Tony Blair thought he could head to Dundee today for the Scottish Party conference and escape the row over this woman's cancelled operation, he was mistaken. In fact, the case of Margaret Dixon and the NHS is dominating the agenda. Well, here's how it all began. It was during a fiery PMQs on Wednesday when Michael Howard first raised her case with Tony Blair, claiming that Mrs Dixon's shoulder operation had been cancelled 7 times. Warrington Hospital later disputed this. They claimed it was only 3 times. On Thursday morning, Mrs Dixon's daughter Lindsay joined Mr Howard at his London home before heading to Downing Street to hand in a petition to Mr Blair. Later that day, Health Secretary John Reid went to Warrington Hospital to meet patients and staff, but not Margaret Dixon, after claiming he didn't want to be part of a Conservative Party publicity stunt. And earlier today, Tony Blair took the battle back to the Conservatives, as Sky's Peter Sharp now reports.
Any thoughts that the case of Mrs Dixon and the cancelled shoulder operation may have been consigned to recent political history were dashed today as the Prime Minister stepped up to ensure that the NHS remained at the top of the pre-election political agenda with this attack on Michael Howard.
To see him take the case of someone in pain and use it to run down and denigrate the whole of our National Health Service should make any decent, right-thinking person turn away in disgust.
But the Leader of the Opposition was unapologetic.
I think it's wrong that someone has to go through the ordeal which Margaret Dixon went through, of having her operation cancelled 7 times.
Actually 3 times, says the medical director of Warrington Hospital. And he says he couldn't guarantee that Mrs Dixon's next proposed operation would actually go ahead anyway.
It may be that an emergency was admitted overnight that requires urgent surgery for a life-threatening condition. And in that situation, it would be possible that she would be cancelled again.
With the focus once again on the performance of the NHS, both sides today could take comfort from the statistics. For instance, 66,300 non-emergency operations are cancelled each year. That's a rise of 18% over the last 5 years, as the Tories are quick to point out. But Labour claim there's been a 14% increase in operations over the same period. Outside Warrington Hospital, that provided the spark for this political firefight, who did the patients think was winning the NHS debate?
I don't think any of the politicians deserve to win or lose.